First contact fallout. The Aridian survey ship Boundless Horizon hovered at the edge of the Sol system, its sensors gathering data on the third planet with methodical precision. Commander Varric stood on the observation deck, his 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic projection of Earth. "Primitive," he muttered, mandibles clicking with distaste. "Look at them, Second Scholar. They've barely touched their own moon, and their atmosphere is thick with pollutants. They still burn fossil fuels." Second Scholar Lorana moved closer to the projection, her slender fingers adjusting the focus to zoom in on Earth's night side, cities glowing like neural pathways across continents. Yet they've achieved global communication networks, rudimentary AI systems, and their art. She paused, gesturing to a separate screen displaying a rapid succession of human cultural artifacts. Symphonies, paintings, architecture, literature. Their creativity is perplexing. Commander Varric dismissed her observation with a wave. "Irrelevant. The collective needs this system's resources, particularly the asteroid belt and gas giants. The natives present minimal resistance potential. Protocol suggests observation for at least one stellar cycle before." "Protocol wastes time," Varric interrupted. "The preliminary scan is sufficient. We've conquered 12 systems with far more advanced civilizations. These humans fight among themselves over arbitrary geographical boundaries and skin pigmentation. They'll crumble at first contact with a superior force." Lorana wanted to object but knew her place. The Aridian collective had expanded across 17 star systems in the past century using the same methodology. Identify, assess, conquer. Earth would become the 18th, its resources harvested, its population subjugated or eliminated as efficiency dictated. She returned to her station, but not before downloading a sample of human music, a piece called Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, to her personal database. Something about these humans troubled her. Their signals were chaotic, contradictory, filled with both violence and compassion. Unlike the logical progression of most species development, humans seemed to embrace paradox. 3 cycles later, the collective high command approved Varric's conquest recommendation. A battle group of 7 warships, carrying 15,000 troops and enough firepower to subdue a planet twice Earth's size, entered the Sol system. Major Elena Rodriguez stood on the roof of the Pentagon, watching the night sky with high-powered binoculars. The objects had appeared 12 hours ago. 7 massive structures that had decelerated from impossible speeds and taken up positions in high Earth orbit. Every military on the planet was now at maximum alert. "Any response to our transmissions?" she asked the communications specialist beside her. "Nothing, Major. We've tried all frequencies, all known mathematical sequences. They're just watching." Elena lowered the binoculars. After 20 years in Air Force intelligence, she had prepared for many scenarios. But first contact with an alien civilization hadn't been high on her probability matrix. Now it was happening, and the silence from the visitors was more terrifying than any threat. Her phone buzzed. "Rodriguez. Major, you need to see this." It was General Harrison. "The Chinese just launched 3 anti-satellite missiles toward the objects." Elena felt her stomach drop. God damn it. Without consultation. Apparently they got nervous. "The missiles will reach the targets in approximately 3 minutes." She rushed back into the building, taking the stairs 2 at a time down to the Situation Room. The Joint Chiefs were already assembled, faces grim as they watched the tracking screens. The missiles never reached their targets. At 70 miles up, they simply disintegrated. No explosion, no debris. They were simply gone. 10 minutes later, it began. Not with the massive bombardment they had feared, but with surgical precision. Military bases around the world reported simultaneous strikes. Weapons deposits, aircraft hangars, naval ports. No civilian targets were hit. The message was clear. Resistance would be futile and costly. Then came the landing craft, touching down in major cities worldwide. Washington, D.C., Beijing, Moscow, London, New Delhi, Sao Paulo. The Aridians had done their homework, targeting centers of political power. General Haruki Tanaka watched from his hidden command post as alien troops secured the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. They moved with eerie precision, their armor seamlessly adapting to their surroundings. Japan's self-defense forces had barely managed to fire a shot before their weapon systems went offline. "Sir," his aide whispered, "emergency protocol Fuji is active. All designated personnel have reached the mountain facilities." Tanaka nodded. After the Taiwan crisis 5 years ago, Japan had quietly constructed a network of deep underground military bases designed to survive nuclear strikes. Now they would serve a different purpose. And Project Kitsune. The university teams are already working on the recovered materials. Dr. Watanabe says she's never seen anything like it, but she's smiling. "Sir." That was something, at least. Yuki Watanabe was Japan's leading expert in quantum computing and materials science. If anyone could make sense of alien technology, it would be her. The Aridians had made one critical miscalculation. They had studied human military capabilities and political structures, but had underestimated human adaptability and decentralized innovation. While governments fell or surrendered, individuals and small groups began gathering intelligence, salvaging technology, and organizing resistance. In Silicon Valley, a consortium of tech companies had gone dark, their employees evacuating to predetermined locations in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Led by former Google researcher Dr. Marcus Chen, they had established a digital resistance network before the aliens could fully map Earth's internet architecture. They're using some kind of quantum entanglement for their communications, Marcus explained to the assembled engineers and programmers. But it operates on predictable frequencies. If we can isolate those frequencies, we can listen in, completed Dr. Sarah O'Neill, a theoretical physicist whose work on quantum field manipulation had been deemed too speculative by mainstream academia. Maybe even insert our own communications. Across the world, similar scenes played out. In Bangalore, India's tech hub, programmers worked feverishly to create viruses that might infiltrate alien systems. In a basement laboratory in Johannesburg, South African scientists analyzed the composition of fragments from an alien landing craft. In Rio de Janeiro, a 13-year-old hacker discovered that certain frequencies disrupted alien sensor systems. She had been trying to boost her gaming router's signal when she accidentally knocked out surveillance drones on her block. The Aridian occupiers were baffled by the lack of centralized resistance. They had seized governmental structures, neutralized military commands, and established dominance over major population centers. Yet the humans continued to function, adapt, and occasionally strike back in unpredictable ways. Commander Varek grew increasingly frustrated as reports flooded in. A supply depot sabotaged in Berlin. A communications relay mysteriously offline in Dubai. 3 scout ships disappeared over the Amazon rainforest without a trace. How are they coordinating? He demanded, smashing his fist against the holographic display of Earth. Their global communications networks are under our control. Second scholar Lorana studied the incidents. They're not coordinating, Commander. That's what makes it impossible to predict. Each group is acting independently, using local knowledge and improvised tactics. Impossible. No species operates effectively without central direction. But the evidence was mounting. The Aridians had conquered the Earth's power structures, but not its people. And those people were proving remarkably resourceful. Dr. Yuki Watanabe hadn't slept in 3 days, but her eyes were bright with excitement as she addressed the assembled team in the Mount Fuji facility. The Aridian propulsion system operates on principles similar to our theoretical work on gravity manipulation, she explained, pointing to the disassembled components spread across the laboratory floor. They're about 200 years ahead of us technologically, but their approach is linear. Linear? General Tanaka questioned. Yes, they build on previous technologies in logical steps. They don't make intuitive leaps or combine disparate fields. She smiled. They don't think like humans. We're messy, creative. We connect dots in unexpected ways. Can we use any of this against them? Better than that. We can adapt it. She gestured to a modified drone in the corner. This prototype incorporates their anti-gravity principles. It's crude by their standards, but it works. And they won't expect it. The pattern repeated worldwide. Humans didn't just resist. They innovated. They didn't try to match Aridian technology directly. They adapted it, combined it with existing systems, and deployed it in ways the invaders never anticipated. 6 months after the initial invasion, the Aridian collective faced an unprecedented situation. Their occupation forces were taking increasingly heavy losses. Human resistance wasn't just persisting, it was growing more effective. Worse, some of their own technology was being turned against them. Commander Varric stood before the High Command's holographic projection, his career and possibly his life hanging in the balance. The humans are more problematic than anticipated, he admitted. They lack unity, which initially appeared to be a weakness. However, this diversity has made them unpredictable and difficult to suppress completely. The High Commander's voice was cold. You assured us this would be a standard acquisition, Commander. Instead, we have lost 23% of our occupation force and 4 capital ships. Request reinforcements, Varric said. A full battle fleet. We will overwhelm them with such force that no amount of primitive ingenuity can. Request denied. The High Commander interrupted. The collective cannot afford to commit additional resources to what was meant to be a minor operation. You will complete the pacification with your current assets. The communication terminated, leaving Varric in stunned silence. For the first time in his career, he faced the possibility of failure. Outside the command ship, Earth continued its orbit around its yellow star, its night side glittering with lights, not all of them under Aridian control. The humans were adapting faster than any species the collective had encountered before. They didn't just adopt new technologies. They transformed them, combined them, used them in ways their creators never intended. And they were planning something big. Intelligence reports indicated unusual activity patterns across multiple continents, power fluctuations, resource movements, encrypted communications bursts. The scattered resistance groups were finally coordinating. Varric ordered his remaining forces to prepare for a major human offensive. But where would it come from? And what form would it take? For the first time since the Aridians had begun their galactic expansion, they found themselves reacting rather than controlling. The humans were about to teach them a painful lesson about underestimating a species that had survived and thrived through countless self-inflicted catastrophes, a species that turned adversity into advantage and chaos into opportunity, a species that did not know when it was beaten. And the galaxy was about to learn why no one who challenged Earth ever came back to tell about it. The galaxy takes notice. The coordinated human counterattack began not with a bang, but with a whisper, a cascade of electronic signals so subtle that Aridian systems registered them as background noise. By the time Commander Varric realized what was happening, it was too late. All communication systems are experiencing anomalies, reported the chief technician, mandibles clicking in distress. Our quantum relays are being flooded with extraneous data. Varric stared at the displays as they flickered, stabilized, then began scrolling with symbols no Aridian had programmed. How is this possible? Our encryption is. They didn't break the encryption, interrupted second scholar Lorana, who had been analyzing the phenomenon. They're using our own communication protocols against us, exploiting a resonance pattern in the quantum field. In simple terms, scholar, they're creating noise, overwhelming our systems by transmitting on all frequencies simultaneously. It's elegant, actually. Elegant was not the word Varric would have chosen. Devastating, perhaps. Infuriating, certainly. Across Earth, Aridian command centers were experiencing the same disruption. Units lost contact with their coordinators. Automated defense systems reverted to basic functions. The sophisticated network that had given the invaders their edge was dissolving into chaos. And then the humans struck. Dr. Marcus Chen watched from a mountainside bunker as the modified drone swarmed toward the Aridian command ship, hovering over what had once been San Francisco. The drones were a patchwork of human and alien technology. Nanocarbon frames manufactured in hidden facilities, propulsion systems reverse-engineered from crashed Aridian shuttles, guidance systems cobbled together from gaming consoles, and military-grade targeting software. "Deployment successful," reported his assistant. "All units transmitting." The drones weren't weapons, not directly. They were carriers, each loaded with microscopic infiltrators, quantum-scale devices designed by Dr. Sarah O'Neill based on her understanding of Aridian technology. Once attached to the alien vessel, they would begin their work, not destroying, but subverting. Similar scenes played out globally. In the skies above Shanghai, seemingly primitive projectiles, actually delivery systems for advanced electromagnetic pulse generators, caused Aridian patrol ships to lose power and drift helplessly. Outside Moscow, resistance fighters used modified sound wave generators to disrupt the aliens' neural networks, causing confusion and disorientation without firing a single conventional shot. The humans weren't trying to match Aridian military might. They were changing the rules of engagement entirely. On the Aridian command ship, alarms blared as systems began shutting down and cascading failure. Varric shouted orders that couldn't be transmitted. Crew members reported malfunctions throughout the vessel. And then, to his horror, the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, a fundamental system that should have been impossible to compromise. "Emergency protocols," he bellowed. "Isolate all critical systems." "Too late," Lorana said quietly, pointing to a display showing the ship's defensive shield grid. It wasn't failing. It was changing, the energy patterns shifting into configurations no Aridian engineer had designed. "What are they doing to my ship?" Varric demanded. "Learning from it," she replied. "Adapting it. These humans, they don't just use technology. They transform it. Across Earth," the pattern repeated. Aridian vessels and facilities weren't simply being attacked, they were being infiltrated, modified, repurposed. The invaders found their own systems turning against them in ways they couldn't predict or counter. By the time the sun set over the Pacific Ocean, the Aridian occupation force was in full retreat. 7 months after arriving with overwhelming confidence, they fled Earth's orbit in damaged vessels, their military doctrine in shambles, their understanding of species development fundamentally challenged. Commander Varric, once destined for the highest echelons of the collective's leadership, now faced the unthinkable task of reporting the first major defeat in Aridian expansion history. The Galactic Council chamber hummed with subdued conversation as representatives from 24 spacefaring civilizations discussed the unprecedented news. The Aridian Collective, a relentless expansionist power that had dominated galactic politics for centuries, had suffered a catastrophic defeat at the hands of a pre-FTL species. Ambassador Drex of the Myriad Confluence, an alliance of systems that had long resisted Aridian pressure, addressed the chamber. "The reports are confirmed. The Collective's invasion force was repelled entirely. Furthermore, they lost significant technological assets. Some of their vessels were captured intact by the humans." "Impossible," growled the Thexian representative, his scaled skin flushing deep purple with agitation. "No single planet species could defeat an Aridian battle group. There must have been outside interference." "None detected," replied Ambassador Drex. "The humans accomplished this entirely on their own, adapting Aridian technology with remarkable speed and applying it in ways the Collective never anticipated." In the shadows of the chamber's upper tier, observer Krulna of the Sentinel Echelon listened with profound interest. The Sentinels had monitored galactic development for millennia, remaining hidden from younger races, intervening only when absolutely necessary to prevent catastrophic disruptions to the cosmic order. This development warranted closer inspection. A species that could defeat the Aridians without external help, while still confined to their home system, represented either a significant threat or an extraordinary opportunity for galactic stability. The Council must determine an appropriate response. Continued Ambassador Rex. The humans now possess advanced technology. If they master interstellar travel, they must be contained, interrupted the Thexian. Quarantine their system. Establish a buffer zone. And who would enforce such a quarantine? Asked Ambassador Rex with a pointed smile. Would you volunteer Thexian warships for the task? After seeing what happened to the Aridians, the chamber erupted into heated debate. Observer Krelna slipped away, a decision already made. The Sentinels would send their own observers to Earth, not to quarantine or contain, but to understand. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now director of the United Earth Defense Initiative, stood on the observation platform overlooking what had once been an Aridian command vessel. Now it was the centerpiece of humanity's first interstellar research facility, housed in a repurposed aircraft hangar in the Nevada desert. The reverse engineering is proceeding faster than expected, reported Dr. Watanabe, who had relocated from Japan to lead the international research team. Their FTL drive operates on principles we've theorized about, but couldn't implement without their quantum stabilization technology. Elena nodded, watching as scientists from 24 nations worked side by side, previous geopolitical rivalries forgotten in the face of cosmic possibilities. Timeline. Conservative estimate. 5 years until we can construct our own interstellar vessel. Less if we continue to make breakthroughs at the current rate. And what about our guests? Dr. Watanabe's expression grew more serious. The captured Aridians continue to resist traditional interrogation, but they're providing information unintentionally. Their psychology is rigid. They struggle to comprehend how we defeated them with inferior technology and no centralized command structure. Elena smiled. Sometimes being unpredictable is the greatest advantage. Indeed, their entire society is built on hierarchy and logical progression. Our chaotic, creative approach is almost incomprehensible to them. It's as if they evolved along entirely different mental pathways. As they spoke, neither was aware of the subtle observation taking place. In a cafe across the street from the facility, a being who appeared to be a middle-aged academic sipped coffee while reading a newspaper. To all sensors, both human and the remaining hidden Aridian surveillance devices, he registered as perfectly human. Observer Malia of the Sentinel Echelon had been on Earth for 3 months, one of 12 disguised observers scattered strategically around the planet. What she had discovered both fascinated and concerned her people's ancient council. The humans weren't just adapting Aridian technology. They were improving it, finding applications the original designers had never considered. More importantly, they were doing so collaboratively, with research teams sharing discoveries globally despite lingering political differences. Most concerning of all, they were preparing for what they saw as inevitable future contact with hostile species. Earth was unifying not through conquest or ideological dominance, but through pragmatic cooperation against external threats. It was an evolutionary path the Sentinels had rarely witnessed, a species forged in the crucible of adversity. In the depths of Aridian space, the collective's high command faced an unprecedented crisis. News of their defeat had spread despite information controls, causing ripples of instability throughout their carefully managed society. Conquered species whispered about the humans who had done the impossible. Border systems reconsidered their allegiance. High Commander Therex faced the assembled War Council, his aged carapace bearing the marks of centuries of service to the collective. This situation cannot stand, he declared. The humans must be subjugated, not merely for their resources now, but for the future stability of the collective. Their example threatens everything we have built. The assembly chittered in agreement, but First Strategist Voss raised a note of caution. We underestimated them once. The second expedition must be overwhelming, leaving no possibility of resistance. Agreed, rumbled Therex. I am committing 30% of our total military capacity to this operation. The humans will face the full might of the collective, not an expeditionary force, but a cleansing fleet. In the shadows behind the council chambers, second scholar Lorana, recalled from the failed expedition, listened with growing concern. The collective was making the same mistake again, seeing the humans as simply another obstacle to be overcome with sufficient force. They still didn't understand what made Earth different. The humans didn't just fight with weapons. They fought with ideas, with creativity, with an adaptive intelligence that the Aridians' rigid hierarchical thinking couldn't match. She had studied human culture during the occupation, finding herself drawn to their music, their art, their chaotic but vibrant societies. There was something there, something valuable that would be lost if the collective succeeded in its plan. For the first time in her long career, Lorana considered an unthinkable action: betrayal. 6 months later, Earth's first detection grid, a network of sensors built with hybrid human-Aridian technology, detected massive disturbances at the edge of the solar system. The Aridians had returned, and as Elena Rodriguez had predicted, they had brought an overwhelming force. In the emergency command center beneath Geneva, representatives from Earth's unified defense forces assessed the threat. 27 capital ships, over 100 support vessels, reported General Tanaka, now Supreme Commander of the United Earth Defense Forces. They'll reach Earth orbit in approximately 72 hours. Elena studied the holographic display. They're not here to occupy this time. This is an extermination fleet. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had prevailed against the first invasion through ingenuity and adaptive tactics, but this force was orders of magnitude more powerful. "We need more time," said Dr. Chen, who had been leading the weapons development program. "The planetary defense system isn't fully operational, and our space-based platforms are still in testing phases." "Then we'll make time," Elena decided. "Implement Operation Phalanx." What the approaching Aridian fleet didn't know was that humanity hadn't been idle during the months of peace. The captured alien technology had been studied, replicated, and enhanced. But more importantly, humans had done what they did best. They had innovated. As the Aridian fleet crossed the orbit of Jupiter, they encountered the first surprise. What appeared to be debris fields were actually sophisticated mine clusters, their signatures masked by technology the collective had never developed. Several support ships were crippled before the fleet could adjust its course. In the command ship, High Commander Therex received the reports with growing irritation. "Minor setbacks. Press forward. Full combat alert." The fleet regrouped and continued its advance, more cautiously now. As they approached the asteroid belt, the second layer of Earth's defense revealed itself. Asteroids that had been hollowed out and retrofitted with propulsion systems began to move, not directly attacking, but creating navigational hazards that forced the fleet to further slow its progress. "Clever delaying tactics," admitted first strategist Voss, "but ultimately futile." "Sir," interrupted a communications officer, "we're detecting a transmission from Earth. Text only, directed specifically at this vessel." "Ignore it," ordered Therex. "Psychological warfare." "Sir, it's using command-level encryption protocols. Protocols that were never compromised in the previous engagement." Therex hesitated, then nodded. "Display it." The message was brief. "High Command vessel identified. Targeting solution acquired. Last warning to withdraw." Therex laughed, a harsh, clicking sound. Desperate bluffing. "No pre-FTL species could possibly penetrate our defensive systems from planetary distance. Continue the advance." Moments later, alarms blared throughout the command ship as critical systems began failing simultaneously. Propulsion, weapons, life support, all compromised by attacks from within the system itself. "Impossible," roared Therex. "How could they?" The answer stood before him. As second scholar Lorana stepped onto the command deck, accompanied by security personnel whose neural implants had been subtly reprogrammed. "I provided them with the access codes," she said calmly. "I showed them how our systems work, how to create targeted infiltration packages." "Traitor!" Therex lunged toward her, only to be restrained by the security team. "Why?" Because the collective is wrong about the humans, she replied. They're not just another species to conquer. They're something new, something different. They don't think like us, and that makes them valuable. Their chaos, their creativity, it's not a weakness. It's their greatest strength. Throughout the fleet, similar scenarios unfolded. Critical systems failed. Weapons turned against their own ships. Communication networks dissolved into meaningless noise. The mighty armada, poised to eliminate humanity from the galaxy, found itself paralyzed. And then Earth revealed its final surprise. From launch facilities around the planet rose vessels of human design, but Aridian inspiration. The first Earth-built interstellar craft, prototype defenders equipped with weapons that shouldn't have been possible for decades. They were few in number, but they didn't need to win a conventional battle. The Aridian fleet was already defeating itself, compromised from within by the very technology the collective had believed made them superior. In the Galactic Council chamber, Observer Krulna delivered the Sentinel Echelon's formal recommendation. The humans of Earth must be recognized as a sovereign spacefaring civilization with full rights under the ancient accords, he stated to the stunned assembly. They have demonstrated not only the ability to defend their system, but the ingenuity to advance their technological development at an unprecedented rate. They defeated a cleansing fleet, whispered the Thexian representative. No species has ever survived Aridian extermination protocols. The humans did more than survive, corrected Krulna. They captured much of the fleet intact. They now possess full Aridian technological archives, ship construction facilities, and quantum communication networks. Furthermore, our observers report they are already improving upon these technologies in ways the collective never envisioned. Ambassador Zrex of the Myriad Confluence rose. I formally move that we establish diplomatic relations with Earth immediately, before they venture into the galaxy on their own terms. The motion carried overwhelmingly. 1 year later, the first official galactic diplomatic delegation arrived at Earth's newly constructed orbital station. Elena Rodriguez, now Ambassador Rodriguez, led the Human Reception Committee. As representatives from 26 spacefaring civilizations were introduced, she noted the conspicuous absence of the Aridians. The collective had withdrawn to its core systems, its expansionist policies abandoned as it struggled with internal political upheaval. Welcome to Earth, she greeted the assembled delegates. We're looking forward to peaceful exchange and mutual benefit. The Sentinel observer Krulna, now serving as formal ambassador from his ancient civilization, offered the traditional greeting. The stars shine upon our meeting. But it was the words he spoke privately to her afterward that Elena would remember most clearly. You should know, he said, that word has spread throughout all corners of the galaxy. Earth is no longer seen as simply another world. You've become something else in the cosmic consciousness. What's that? She asked. A warning, he replied. The species that could not be conquered. The world that breaks invaders. The planet that no hostile force ever returns from. He smiled, an expression he had learned during his time observing humans. It's quite an effective deterrent. Elena looked out at the viewport, where Earth hung blue and peaceful against the black of space. Humanity had survived its first cosmic test, but the greater challenge lay ahead. Joining a galactic community while maintaining the unique chaos and creativity that had saved them. We never wanted to be feared, she said quietly. Perhaps not, replied Krulna. But sometimes being feared by the right people ensures one is respected by everyone else. As starships from a dozen worlds orbited peacefully around the once isolated planet, the galaxy adjusted to a new reality. Earth was no longer a primitive curiosity or a target for conquest. It was a power to be respected, approached with caution, and, increasingly, studied with admiration. For humanity had done what no other species managed. They had turned invasion into opportunity, threat into advancement, and fear into a future among the stars. And throughout the vast reaches of the galaxy, would-be conquerors looked toward the small blue planet and chose to seek their fortunes elsewhere. because everyone now knew why fleets sent to conquer Earth never returned.